Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, July 24th, 2025. Let's take care of the house cleaning first. We do have a vid chat tomorrow afternoon. It looks like we're going to go ahead with that at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time. I'll be in the chat room a little early to make sure everything is working okay. We've been having technical issues with the last few vid chats with some hiccups, most of them caused by yours truly. But anyway, I'll be there for tomorrow's vid chat. It does not look like we're going to have any weather, but remember, keep an eye on the forum anyway, just in case there's any last minute changes. They were predicting some storms tonight. I don't know if those are going to be severe or even in the area. So if I don't show up, that might mean that I have had my power knocked out and they haven't got it back on. You know the whole story. Anyway, we've got some very interesting news. Before I get to that, remember also to get your questions and comments in no later than 10 o'clock tonight, U.S. Central Time. And remember, the timestamp on my end is the one that counts. All right. We've got some news to talk about. If you're following Japan, there was just in the last election to the Japanese Diet's upper house, there was just an earthquake in Japanese politics, in that a Japanese party called Sanseito gained an enormous amount of traction in Japanese politics and extending their presence in the Diet. And this party bears watching. If you go to the link that I'll provide to this article, you're going to discover why. I'm going to read this. This appeared in Tokyo Weekly. And by the way, you should understand that most of the Japanese press, as over here, we would call it legacy lamestream propaganda media, because most of the Japanese press is thoroughly under the thumb of the Japanese establishment and more particularly representative of the Liberal Democratic Party. So I want you to listen to these paragraphs that I'm going to read from this article, because in a certain sense, the article illustrates itself why people in Japan are turning away from their own globalist establishment. So here we go. This article appeared in July 17th. It was updated the next day. The article is by Wakaba Oto. Quote, as Japan heads into another upper house election, an unexpected political force is gaining ground and raising alarm bells. Sanseito, a once obscure party known for its nationalist slogans and conspiratorial rhetoric, is polling unexpectedly high in national surveys. In a recent Kyoto News poll conducted from July 5th to 6th, the party ranked second in proportional representation support, behind only the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. For a group that was initially dismissed as fringe, the rise is both dramatic and deeply concerning to many observers. Now stop right there. You've noticed all the telltale clues and buzzwords for demonizing an enemy, political enemy you don't like. Conspiratorial rhetoric, a fringe party, bunch of lunatics, and on we go. So, they explain what they mean by these terms a few paragraphs later, and this is what I find so very revealing. Not necessarily so much about the Sanseito party. It may indeed be all those things, but given the biases of the establishment media in the West and in Japan that we've seen over the past few years, we really don't know how conspiratorial or right-wing they are. But here is the Tokyo Weekly's explanation of what these terms mean. Quote, founded in early 2020 As the COVID-19 pandemic was beginning to unfold, there's a clue, folks, Sanseito initially gained attention for its divisive and inflammatory rhetoric, as well as its penchant for repeating conspiracy theories. The party vehemently opposed mask mandates, PCR testing, vaccine requirements, and other public health measures, and was openly anti-immigration. Well, gosh, folks, can't be any of those things, otherwise you're a lunatic. So in other words, what you're dealing with Sanseito, it sounds to me, is that you're dealing with Sanseito as exactly the same type of rejection of globalonism and all of its kooky agendas, rather than this right-wing rabid conspiracy that they're making it out to be. Let's continue. Quote, its official platform prioritizes 3 pillars. Now listen to these, folks. Again, conspiratorial rhetoric, divisive and inflammatory rhetoric, conspiracy theories. Here we go. The 3 pillars of its official platform, quote, education reform, health and food sovereignty, and national defense. These seemingly innocuous issues conceal a far more disturbing worldview, a platform revolving around a hardline rejection of globalism and foreign influence. Under the banner of Japanese First, the party pushes for sweeping immigration restrictions, strict limits on foreign land ownership, and policies that frame outsiders as a threat to national security and cultural purity. In other words, folks, the party is putting Japan first. And by that, they mean Japanese culture, Japanese interests, Japanese land, and so on and so forth. So it's revealing to me to see that regardless of whatever their figurehead of the party may be, he may be a firebrand, I don't know. But the party itself sounds more to me like you have Japan reasserting itself and its national and cultural sovereignty. That's all. And in any movement where you have that sort of thing going on, are you going to attract firebrands and right-wing lunatics? Well, certainly, just like the left has attracted all sorts of radical lunatics to its cause, as we've seen throughout the West. The article continues. Like many nascent far-right movements, Sanseito has a charismatic figurehead known for divisive and conspiratorial outbursts. Sohei Kamiya, who was elected to the Diet's upper house, the House of Councilors, in 2022 on the party's proportional representation ticket. In the past few years, he's blamed gender equality for Japan's birth rate. Interesting comment there. Dismissed older women as biologically irrelevant, and spewed blatant anti-Semitism, just to name a few. Now, again, I suspect that you're dealing with the same type of populist revolt that you're seeing basically all over the world against the tenets of progressivism, globalism, internationalism, whatever you wish to call it. Now, here's an interesting final comment on this party, and then I'm going to give you my take or my prediction about what this presages for Japan on the world stage. The last 2 paragraphs read as follows, quote, according to international policy analyst Yuo Watase, a Sanseito founding member who left the party after becoming disillusioned with its policies, the party's success stems from doing what no other party in Japan bothers to do, actually building a membership base. Boy, does that sound familiar? In essence, Sanseito mirrors the populist playbooks seen elsewhere. In other words, this article is admitting really, that what's happening in Japan is the same populist cultural revolt against process politics, technocratic politics represented by globalism, which takes no heed or account of regional or national culture. In essence, Sanseito mirrors the populist playbook seen elsewhere: Trump's Republican Party, Brexit-era UKIP, and France's National Rally. You might add Alternative für Deutschland to that, or Viktor Orban's party in Hungary. The ideological content varies. Not so much, not really, folks. Those platform tenets that I read you, that the article itself summarizes, are pretty much the same types of platform tenets or emphases that you'll find in the populist movements in France, Germany, the United States, Canada, for that matter, recently Argentina. So you're finding the same phenomenon happening everywhere, and the phenomenon is to my mind, a global phenomenon, and it's the global rejection of globalism. The ideological content varies, but the mechanics, direct communication, emotional narrative, and institutional distrust are strikingly similar, unquote. And that's how the article ends. Well, folks, if you people that are the so-called progressive or technocrat or globalist elite want to retain power, then you might try some direct and honest communication. You might try having some emotion and passion about your agenda rather than merely the deadpan, empty, soulless, robotic delivery that you normally have. And you might want to try and restore some trust in the institutions that have been hollowed out by your own corruption. But what does all of this portend for Japan? And this is where I think it's very interesting, because another unmentioned part of the platform of this party, at least as far as its current spokesman goes, is to restore real power to the emperor. In other words, we want to return to the whole tradition of Japanese imperial culture. I suspect very strongly that regardless of whether this party is successful in ever coming to power in Japan, that the populist cultural handwriting in that country is on the wall. It's there for all to see. And it really began, if you'll think back, to the premiership of Shinzo Abe and his very careful diplomacy on the world stage, particularly vis-a-vis Russia, because you'll recall that Mr. Abe and Mr. Putin were negotiating and concluding all sorts of deals that basically tabled discussion about the Kuril Islands and Japan's claims over them, tabled discussions of that for discussions about trade and technology transfer, because Japan needs energy and Russia has it and it's right next door, and Russia needs all that wonderful high-speed rail technology and other things that it can only get from two places, or actually three. It can get them from France. Of course, it can't do that because France has sanctioned Russia. It doesn't want to be beholden to China for that technology because it's already staring down the barrel of the Chinese gun anyway, vis-a-vis Siberia. So it needs a counterbalancing force in the region from which it can gain some of those technological benefits, and that's Japan. So far from seeing the end of this populist movement, what I'm predicting is this populist movement is going to feed into all of those geopolitical agendas that were begun under Mr. Abe. And let's remember one important thing. Mr. Abe's widow recently went on a visit to the Kremlin. And this sort of thing does not happen at all, not only in Japanese politics, but on the international order. So in other words, That trip, I think, was a deliberate message sending on the part of the Japanese deep state, the Zaibatsu, or if you want to use the term for it. The Japanese deep state would not have sanctioned that sort of trip unless it wanted to send some very deliberate messages. So the political culture is changing in Japan. And again, I think it's for the very reason that I advanced in all those blogs about what Mr. Abe was up to. It's changing because the Japanese deep state has taken the measure of America as a reliable ally and found it wanting, and is looking to balance out any deficiencies in that alliance by creating new relationships with other world powers, chiefly Russia. This is not going to change under this new administration if the Sanseito party ever takes power. So we might observe, pardon me, that this party would, if anything, reverse course only on those aspects of Mr. Abe's policy that concern the Kuril Islands and Japanese claims over them. But other than that, I'm not detecting here much that sets them apart from other populist movements in other countries, or that sets them apart from the previous course that Mr. Abe laid out for Japanese diplomacy on the international stage. So some important news. It's important to keep your eye on Japan. I think in the next few years it's going to become yet again another major Asian player in a way that we haven't seen really in a very, very long time. Don't forget to get your comments in for the vid chat tomorrow by no later than 10 o'clock U.S. Central Time tonight. I hope to see more people in the vid chats tomorrow. Bye-bye and God bless.